Hey beauties, and also our beasts. It's story time, so grab whatever that makes you comfortable and settle down because tonight's story is a wild one that literally gave me chills. One of the movies I was shocked to watch when I was a little kid was The Exorcist. And did you know that there are so many stories of real possessions like that? Well, tonight I'm going to tell you one of the most terrifying real-life cases that ever happened. This story is so disturbing that it inspired multiple horror movies, including The Exorcism of Emily Rose. So dim the lights, get cozy, and let me tell you about something that happened in Germany back in the 1970s. Something so disturbing that it still gives people nightmares today. This is the true story of Anneliese Michel, and I promise you it's more terrifying than any horror movie you've ever seen. So, let's get started. It's July 1st, 1976, early morning. A young woman lies dying in a small house in Bavaria. She's only 23 years old, but she weighs less than 70 pounds, which is like 30 kilograms. Her body is covered in bruises, her knees are broken, and her lips are cracked from dehydration. And as she takes her last breath, she whispers to her mother, "Mama, stay with me. I'm afraid." That poor woman was Anneliese Michel, and what happened to her will make you question everything you think you know about the world. So let me take you back to where it all started. Anneliese was born as Anna Elizabeth Michel on September 21st, 1952, in a tiny German town called Leibelfing, West Germany. She had 3 sisters, and they were all raised by their parents, Joseph and Anna Michel. Think of the most religious family you can ever imagine, then multiply that by 10. The Michels went to church twice a week, prayed together every single night, and raised their 4 daughters to be perfect little Catholic girls. And Anneliese, she was their golden child, beautiful, smart, kind to everyone she met. She helped her younger sisters with homework, never missed confession, and dreamed of maybe becoming a teacher one day. And if you met her in 1968, you'd think she had the perfect life ahead of her. But here's the thing about perfect lives. Sometimes they can shatter in an instant. September 21st, 1968. Anneliese is sitting in class, just a normal 16-year-old girl on a normal school day. Then suddenly, she stops talking mid-sentence. Her eyes roll back in her head until only the whites are showing. She just stands there, completely still, like someone hit a pause button on her life. Her classmates are shaking her, calling her name, but it's like she's not even there anymore. For several terrifying minutes, Anneliese is just gone. Then just as suddenly, she snaps back. But here's the weird part. She has absolutely no memory of what just happened. Her friends walk her home, and her parents tuck her into bed, thinking maybe she's just tired or stressed about school. But that night, all hell breaks loose. Around 2 a.m., screaming starts echoing through the house. Anneliese is writhing in her bed, clutching her chest, gasping that she can't breathe. She's telling her parents that something is sitting on her, crushing her. Her words are all slurred, like she's forgotten how to speak properly. For the next few days, she can't even control her bladder. She's stumbling around like she doesn't know how to use her own body. Her parents are terrified, but then, just like that, all the symptoms suddenly disappear. Everything goes back to normal. So they thought it was just over, but they were so wrong. August 1969, the seizures come back. But this time, they're worse, much worse. Anneliese's parents rush her to the best neurologist they can find. Dr. Siegfried Luthi runs every test imaginable on her brain, and the results? Perfectly normal. Her brain waves look exactly like they should for a healthy teenage girl. But healthy teenage girls don't collapse into violent convulsions. They don't speak in voices that aren't their own. And they definitely don't see things that terrify them so much they won't even describe what they're looking at. At the mental health facility she was being treated, Anne experienced her third seizure in June 1970. For the first time, anti-convulsion medications were administered to her, but they had no beneficial effect. She received a prescription for a medication that treats schizophrenia, delusions, and abnormal behavior the same month. By the time Anneliese turns 20, things are getting really strange. She starts seeing shadows moving in corners where there shouldn't be shadows. Faces appear and disappear in her peripheral vision, twisted, sneering faces that vanish the second she tries to look directly at them. Then she starts smelling things, awful things. The stench of sulfur fills her nostrils out of nowhere. Sometimes it's the smell of rotting meat. Other times, it's something else entirely, something so foul she can't even find words to describe it. But the worst part, the voices. At first, the voices only whisper during prayer. So you can imagine trying to say your evening prayers, and suddenly you hear this other voice speaking right into your ear. You're worthless. You're going to burn forever. And that voice isn't coming from outside. It's coming from inside her head, but it's definitely not her own thoughts. It's speaking languages she doesn't understand, saying things that make her physically ill to hear. Sometimes she would claim that she smelled the fragrance of violets when she prayed for the rosary, which gave her a sense of euphoria before falling again into depression moments later. Her psychological torture got worse each day. As months go by, these voices get bolder. They start interrupting normal conversations and they argue with each other. And slowly, Anneliese begins to lose the ability to tell which thoughts are hers and which belong to whatever these things are. And here is where things get really terrifying. By 1973, Anneliese can't be around religious objects anymore. Here, I'm talking about a girl who was raised to love everything about her faith, who used to find comfort in crucifixes and holy water. And now, when she sees a cross, she recoils, like someone just showed her a red-hot iron. Pictures of saints make her eyes water and her hands shake uncontrollably. One time, her family took her on a pilgrimage to a famous shrine in Italy. And as they approached the entrance, Anneliese suddenly stopped dead in her tracks. "I can't go in there," she gasped, and her family could see the terror in her eyes. They're all gnashing their teeth. The ground is on fire. The pictures are too bright. They're blinding me. Her family looked around. All they saw were peaceful pilgrims quietly praying. But through Anneliese's eyes, this holy place had become something out of a nightmare. For 5 long years, doctors tried everything they could think of. They diagnosed her with temporal lobe epilepsy, gave her medications for seizures, antipsychotics for hallucinations, mood stabilizers for depression. Anneliese took every pill they gave her, went to every therapy session, submitted to every test, but nothing worked. In fact, she kept getting worse. She stopped eating, claiming that something inside her wouldn't let her swallow food. And her family would find her in the garden, eating bugs off the ground. Sometimes she'd drink her own urine or dirty water from puddles. This gentle, refined girl was now behaving like a wild animal. During her worst episodes, she'd hurt herself, scratching deep cuts into her arms, banging her head against walls until blood ran down her face. But the most disturbing thing was her voice. Sometimes when she spoke, it wasn't her voice coming out of her mouth. It was something deeper, like a more guttural sound, like an animal trying to form human words.
Ich verbrech das so, dass ich in dem Wald rein bin. Ich trag dir die Rotznase noch so lang, bis es lebt wird. Die Saublöderei. Für uns gibt's kein Zurück. Sie in alle Ewigkeit.
By 1975, Anneliese's family was desperate. They'd been to dozens of doctors and nothing was helping their daughter. So they turned to the church, begging priest after priest to perform an exorcism. One by one, they were turned away because the Catholic Church had become very careful about claims of demonic possession. But then they met Father Ernst Alt, and he was different. When he came to visit Anneliese, something strange happened. For the entire time he was there, she didn't have a single seizure, even though doctors said she was having them multiple times every day. And even weirder, when Father Alt held up a crucifix that was actually hidden behind his back, Anneliese immediately started writhing in agony, even though she couldn't possibly have seen it. And Father Alt became convinced that this wasn't a medical problem. It was something else entirely. After months of arguing with church officials, he finally convinced Bishop Joseph Stangl to authorize an exorcism. And this was the first official exorcism approved in Germany in over 50 years. Father Arnold Renz joined Father Alt, and in September 1975, they began what would become a 10-month descent into absolute hell. Between September 1975 and July 1976, Anneliese underwent 67 separate exorcism sessions. Each one lasted between 4 and 10 hours. Some went on all night long. And here's the thing that makes this case different from any other. The priest recorded many of these sessions on audio tape, and those recordings still exist today, and they are the most terrifying sounds you will ever hear. During these exorcisms, 6 different personalities spoke through Anneliese's mouth. They claimed to be demons, and they each had their own distinct voice and personality. Lucifer, who claimed to be the ruler of hell itself, Cain, the first murderer from the Bible, Judas, who betrayed Jesus, Nero, the Roman emperor who persecuted Christians, Adolf Hitler, yes, that Hitler, and a disgraced priest named Fleischmann. The voices that came out of this dying young woman were nothing like her own. They were deep, rasping, animalistic. They spoke in languages she'd never learned, knew historical details she'd never studied, and had theological knowledge that was way beyond her education. But the most heartbreaking part of those recordings isn't the demonic voices. It's when you can hear the real Anneliese breaking through, begging her parents to make it stop, asking for water, wondering why God had abandoned her. And let me tell you about one particular recording that still gives people the chills. In it, one of the demons is talking about the rosary, those prayer beads Catholics use. But the way it talks about it is just pure evil. That accursed chain of beads, it burns us, it weakens our hold. Those women who clutch it and mumble their empty prayers, they don't understand its power. And the voice speaking these words doesn't sound human. It's got this rasp that seems to claw its way up from somewhere deep and dark, punctuated by growls that make your skin crawl just listening to them.
Alles zu sagen, was du zu sagen hast. Im Namen Jesu und im Namen im Namen Jesu und Maria befehle ich dir.
Nein, scheiß Ding, überall raus. Geht ja fast niemand mehr. Nein, das Scheißding.
In was? In persönliche Beichte. Bekennen.
Nein! Ja!
As the months went on, Anne also experienced the Messiah complex during these rites. Messiah complex is basically a state where an individual believes they are destined to save or redeem others. Anneliese developed this idea that her suffering had a purpose. She believed that she was meant to die to save other people, specifically young people who had lost their faith and priests who had become corrupt. I must suffer so they don't have to, she would whisper during her rare lucid moments. This is my sacrifice. I cannot be saved, but through my pain, others will find their way back to God. And this twisted sense of divine mission is probably what ultimately killed her, Convinced that her suffering was holy, Anneliese refused food and water for longer and longer periods. She thought that eating would somehow make her sacrifice less meaningful. And her parents, believing their daughter was fighting for her immortal soul, made a decision that would haunt them forever. They stopped all medical treatments. So that meant no more doctors, no more medication, just prayer and endless exorcisms. So by June 1976, Anneliese was dying. She weighed less than 70 pounds or merely 30 kilograms. Her hair was falling out, her skin hung loose on her skeletal frame. Her knees had been broken from the countless hours spent kneeling in prayer. Still, the exorcism continued. On June 30th, 1976, Anneliese spoke her last words to her mother. "Mama, stay with me. I'm afraid." And by morning, she was dead. And when the doctor arrived to issue a death certificate, he took one look at her body and refused to sign it. The condition of her corpse suggested severe abuse and neglect. Within hours, police were involved, and 4 people, her parents, and the 2 priests were charged with murder. In March 1978, the trial began. The courtroom was packed with reporters from all around the world. I mean, everyone wanted to know, was this a case of religious fanaticism, or had something truly supernatural occurred? The prosecution played those chilling audio recordings for the jury. Grown men in that courtroom shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Several jury members covered their faces. The sounds coming from those speakers seemed to belong to another world entirely. The defense played their own selection of recordings, focusing on moments when the different demons could be heard arguing with each other, speaking in ancient languages, and demonstrating knowledge that Anneliese couldn't possibly have possessed. Medical experts testified that everything could be explained by her epilepsy and mental illness. But questions remained. How could a dying girl have the strength to fight against multiple grown men for hours? How did she know so much about theology and history? And why did she never have seizures around Father Alt? But on April 1st, 1978, all 4 defendants were found guilty of negligent homicide. They received suspended sentences. The court recognized that they had acted out of genuine belief and not malicious intent. But the story doesn't end here. Nearly 2 years after Anneliese's death, her family had her body dug up. They believed that they might find evidence that she was actually a saint, that her body wouldn't have decayed normally. Official reports said the body showed normal decomposition, but rumors persisted among believers that something supernatural had been discovered, though nothing was ever proven. Today, her grave in Germany is visited by people from around the world who believe Anneliese died as a martyr, sacrificing herself for other salvation. Fresh flowers still appear on her headstone regularly. So what do we think about the story? Was Anneliese Michel possessed by demons, or was she a victim of undiagnosed mental illness? Modern doctors have explanations for everything that happened to her. Temporal lobe epilepsy can cause religious hallucinations, personality changes, and the feeling of being controlled by outside forces. Seizures can start with an aura, which is a simple or complicated partial seizure in which people may feel symptoms like nausea, vertigo, anxiety, or strange sense, according to Johns Hopkins Medicine. And her strict religious background could have shaped how her brain interpreted these medical symptoms. And the different voices could be explained by a psychological condition where people unconsciously recall forgotten information, maybe things she'd heard in church or read in religious books. Some wanted to challenge these by questioning how Anne could speak in different languages when she was possessed. An article also took a look into this and pinpointed that during the possession, Anne spoke in Latin and German. But first of all, when the demon Judas spoke, he didn't use the dialect or language he would be using. Latin is familiar to Anne since she was a Roman Catholic. Hitler is German, which Anne could speak the language fluently. Even her apparent superhuman strength during these exorcisms could be attributed to adrenaline and the altered states that come with severe seizures. But even with all these medical explanations, some things still don't add up. The detailed theological knowledge she displayed went way beyond anything she'd been taught. The consistent personalities of the supposed demons, each with their own speech patterns and historical references, seemed remarkably sophisticated for hallucinations. And then there's the speed of her physical decline during the exorcisms. While refusing food certainly contributed to her death, the rate of her deterioration seemed to exceed what starvation alone could account for. And this famous Anneliese story has inspired several horror movies, including The Exorcism of Emily Rose. But Hollywood couldn't capture the true horror of what actually happened. The real audio recordings and photographs are far more disturbing than anything they put on screen. Her case also forced the Catholic Church to completely revise its rules about exorcisms in 1984. Now they require extensive medical and psychological evaluation before any ritual can be approved. They specifically designed these new rules to prevent another tragedy like Anneliese's. Nearly 50 years later, we still don't know what really happened to Anneliese Michel. Was she a victim of failed medicine and religious extremism? Or was she genuinely fighting a spiritual battle that we cannot understand? Maybe the scariest possibility is that both things are true. That in our rush to explain everything through science or faith, we've missed something important about the mysteries that still exist in our world. What we know for certain is that a young woman died horribly, convinced that her suffering meant something. Whether that belief came from diseased brain chemistry or genuine supernatural forces, it led to one of the most documented and disturbing cases in modern history. Those audio recordings are still out there, archived away, waiting for anyone brave enough to listen. Her final words still haunt everyone who hears this story. "Mama, stay with me. I'm afraid." Whether you believe in demons or not, that fear in her voice was absolutely real. And on that dark summer night in 1976, that fear finally claimed her life. So what do you think really happened to her? The truth is, we may never know. Despite all our technology and knowledge, the human mind and the world around us still hold secrets that can terrify us. And sometimes those forces are more powerful than all our medicine and science combined. That is a wrap for today. Hope you guys sleep well and see you guys in our next episode. Bye-bye.